Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Curt Schilling Baseball Show. Got a little something special for you. You've heard me say his name multiple times in multiple episodes of this show. My dear friend and former teammate who's going to be joining me, Doug Mirabelli, is going to be joining me shortly. And hopefully you're going to laugh as much as we do because it's going to be fun and funny. Drafted by the Giants, very high draft pick. Spent most of his career as a backup catcher, which is not an easy thing to do. Very much is from an importance perspective, backup catchers were backup quarterbacks. You have to have one. He has to be ready. And if you don't have a good one, you miss a beat. And Dougie was good. So anyway, stay tuned, catch up, and hopefully you'll have some good laughs with us. Dougie, how you doing, buddy?
Okay, Curdy, what's going on?
Nothing. So I gave you all your props and accolades, introducing you way more than you ever deserved. For those of you that I know I've talked about this, Doug and I have stayed in touch. There's just too much time and too many people you play with to stay in touch with everybody, but there are a select few that you do, and he and I have always kind of stayed in touch. How about the game? Have you been involved in the game, and if so, in what capacity at all? And do you want to be involved in the game?
I'm involved in the game as a fan. So I have a really good friend. His name's Steve Soderstrom. We came up in the minor leagues together with the Giants in the early to mid '90s, and we've been kind of like you and I have been. We've been in constant contact since playing together forever. So our families kind of grew up together. The girls and his sons have been friends for a long time, and so his son was drafted 2 years ago. He was the first pick for the A's in 2021, I believe. Just made his major league debut.
Oh, really?
Maybe 4 or 5 days ago with the A's. So he's a catcher, left-handed hitting catcher. He's 21 years old. He was killing it in AAA. He kind of just fast track through them because he can just crush. He just crush.
For a catcher, that's insanely fast.
Yeah. So he's hitting 20. He had 20 jacks in Las Vegas this year, and so my fandom now is with them. So I just I want to watch him and see how well he does, and I'd get the MLB package just to go watch the A's play, which not too many people are doing at this point, I don't think. Probably by design.
Right. Yeah, no, I'm kind of the same way in the sense that you remember Dave Hollins, his son's probably going to be I think he'll be the number one pick in the draft next year. Left-handed switch hitting first baseman with unbelievable pop, and a left-handed pitcher, low 90s. He's the first kid I've ever seen that has Ohtani-like capability.
Oh, wow.
He's a senior in high school, 6'4", 225, like ripped like Dave Hollins. And he's in South Carolina right now, but they're getting ready for their senior year. But he's going to be something special. But I'm with you. I follow the game, obviously for the show. I marvel at the amount of talent, but I weep at where the game is going. It's hard to watch anymore, especially as a pitcher for me. I have a hard time watching, a litany of throwers go out there and throw 98 as hard as they can and really not care where the ball goes. And then have people talk about how awesome it is when the starting pitcher comes out in the 6th inning and tips his cap after going 5 1/3. It makes I have acid reflux when I watch that. I do a lot of storytelling on here and funny stuff. And I've told people, you made my list. You were at the top of my list of 5 funniest teammates for all the reasons that you and I can chuckle about. Most of them we can't talk about them. But you're going to tell the story because only you can tell it this way. The story that ends with your bare ass on the backseat of a cop car getting in your Boston Red Sox uniform is one of the greatest trade stories in the history of Major League Baseball. So real quick to set up, guys. So Doug and I were together in Boston, and he ended up getting traded. He was in San Diego, and he was Tim Wakefield was a knuckleballer, and Doug had magic hands. And for those of you who don't know, it's like trying to catch a butterfly with chopsticks, catching a knuckleballer. And He was as good as anybody had. Anyway, we traded back for him. I want you to explain, first of all, how you heard about it, and then the process by which you got back to being behind the plate, literally out of the back of a cop car.
So, I mean, to set this up, even when I got traded to San Diego, my heart was still there.
Oh, yeah.
All my buddies were there, and yeah, I was excited about going to San Diego for the fact that I might get some more playing time. But that quickly, before spring training happened, that quickly dissolved as they signed Mike Piazza maybe 3 days, 3 weeks before camp started. So I was in the same situation in San Diego back in Mike Piazza, and I'm like, man, why am I? How am I here? I should be in Boston still catching there. So I always kept tabs, kind of, as a fan of all my teammates, former teammates, and every time Wakey would pitch, it was like he would throw 6-7 innings, give up 2 runs and get a loss, and it typically was because of either a pass ball of some sort or just,
yeah,
unfortunately, it just wasn't working out. So I was just like, man, I'm wondering how long this is going to go on, because it was at the point where we just won a World Series a couple of years before that. We were still right there with a lot of talent. Like, how long are they going to let this happen? So, so May 1st, let's see here. May 1st.
That first month of the season, it was tough because Tech was getting his days off, and it was just, it's an art. Catching a knuckleballer is an art. As few knuckleballers as there are probably just as few catchers who can comfortably sit back there and catch them. And you had a reputation, and Wakey would say he could throw to anybody, but I don't think anybody would say that they could catch him. It's very different. And the pass ball wild pitch thing was legit, and it was tough. And you certainly don't want to embarrass somebody by sticking him back there. Josh Bard, who was trying to catch him at first, didn't go well, and through no fault of his own. Again, it's just incredibly hard to do. So we end up. I remember hearing rumors that you might be coming back, and I'm kind of laughing about the thought of oh God, that would be awesome. But I didn't really know that it was going to happen, and then all of a sudden, bam.
Yeah. Kevin Towers was a GM with San Diego at the time, and I got a call at 8:00 in the morning, San Diego time, and they're like, "Well, we just traded you back to Boston." I'm like, "You got to be kidding me! This isn't a joke, right?" And he's like, "Nope." Jack McCormick, travel secretary, he'll be calling you here, setting up everything. Boom, you're traded. Good luck. So I immediately get a call from Jack. 15 minutes later, saying, "Okay, here's the deal. We got a private plane waiting for you at the airport. It'll be there at 10:00. Get on that plane, and we're flying you back to Boston."
Yeah, it's for you. For those of you who don't know, that's not normal. Normally, you get traded, you get your stuff, you hop on a flight, you'll be first class, of course, and you fly to the city to meet. The urgency was that Wakey was actually pitching that night. So they wanted Doug behind the plate when the game started. Doug's on the West Coast, we're on the East Coast, and go ahead, sorry.
Yeah. So on top of it, it was Johnny Damon's first game back after playing for the Yankees, right? So he's coming back to Boston, and man, Theo's like, we're winning this game. We're not going to lose this game because of the basketball. So 10:00 shows up. Meet the pilots there. They're like, "Hey, we're going to get you there as fast as we can. This is about a 6.5-hour flight." And I'm looking at 10:00. That's 1:00 in Boston. That's a 7:30, between 7 and 7:30 touchdown. I'm like, down. We're not going to make it. So he's like, "We might have to stop in, Kansas somewhere and refuel." I'm like, "Well, we're just not making this thing. This is no way." So we jump on, and for the first, 3 or 4 hours, it's just me kicked back by myself. 2 pilots up there and me in this plane, and it's a mid-size private plane. It's a pretty big plane, right? Yeah. It's built for probably 12, and it's just me back there. It's kind of boring. I'm reading every bit of literature I could, but we started getting close to Cleveland, and the pilot comes back and he's like, "Hey, we just got clearance straight over Cleveland, so that's going to save us some time." I'm like, "Sweet." So as we start to come into New York's airspace,
Yeah.
the
Hey,
pilot.
by the way, let's just interrupt and realize that this is the world we live in. The Red Sox reached out to Cleveland Air authorities and asked to get special permission for a private jet to fly through and not around, but through their airspace,
Yeah.
so their catcher could make a 7:30 start in Boston. How awesome is that?
Yeah, a 7:30 start that a game starts at 7:07. How awesome is that?
Oh,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
we're on ESPN and we're starting at 7:07. Okay. So we start to approach New York, and here comes this pilot back again. He's like, listen, I don't know who you are, but we just got cleared to go straight through New York's airspace. I've carried hearts and livers and never had this much clearance in my life. How about that?
Yeah.
Oh, I say, hey, whatever you do, don't tell them who is in here because
Yeah, no.
they're gonna make you go around.
Or
So
they were gonna rerouted you to Camden.
that's right. Yeah, you're gonna have to go through Canada here. Come on down. So we start going through New York, and heck, we're getting in close into to Boston, and I look out the window, and that's about when it hit me. I realized I see a row of airplanes that are lined up from Boston to Rhode Island. There's 50 of them. We're coming in sideways on them, and we get cleared to land. We take a hard left-hand turn, hit the ground at like Mach 3, slam the brakes on, and here I am cruising taxiing into the private airplane, stop there, and
The hangar.
I see a Explorer police officer. He jumps out of his Explorer and has carrying a duffel bag of my uniform. And I'm like, man, this just got real,
Hey, at what point during the flight did you realize, oh my God, I might make this?
Yeah, New York.
Yeah.
New York. I started looking at my watch, and don't forget, we weren't sure we were going to make it on the gas, because
Right.
we were like, we might have to refuel. So that's when I started, and a lot of feelings started coming through, at the same time. But I jumped out of the plane. I'm like, look, we don't have time for me to change the plane right now. We're just going to have to get going. We hit the ground at 6:47. Okay, and to get from Logan to Fenway at that time on a Yankee series, it's impossible. So
right.
we jump in there, and I start changing, and this guy, the police took some heat. I don't know if you remember this over this.
Oh yeah.
Because he's like, we're using these resources to get a backup catcher to the Fenway play to play against Yankees. That's how serious it was.
Right.
So we're going down Storrow Drive. Cars are just like partying like the Red Sea.
The Red Sea.
I look up, and there's a helicopter over the top of us. They're filming me coming in like I was O.J. Simpson. I'm like, what is going on here? So I get close. I get full unit. I don't have any spikes on. We roll in, and when I get out of the car, it's like the crowd heard the police car roll in, and it just went nuts. So after like the 9th or 10th first pitch they threw out that night.
Yes. I remember you coming through the tunnel, though.
Yeah.
I remember you coming through the tunnel. You were in the batting cage. You threw like 5 balls to loosen up.
Yeah,
and you literally came out of the tunnel without a cup on and your gear, and it was like, hey, Doug, you on the field, game.
I had Willie Mo Pena's 3/4 top spikes on.
No, but you literally came out of the back of the police car and were squatted behind home plate in less than 5 minutes. People don't understand.
And then I go out to the plate, right? And I'm running out, and the crowd's like, okay, you get this incredible feeling of the crowd just like cheering for you. But then you're like, they traded for you for a reason, right? Like, you now got to go catch Wakefield that you have not seen a pitch from in over 7 months.
Right.
And they want you to do this on ESPN against the Yankees.
And don't drop one.
Don't drop any.
Right.
First pitch, warm-up pitch, fastball. Then he goes into a set of like 4 knuckleballs, okay? First, obviously catch the fastball. The first knuckleball hits my glove, drops straight down in front of me.
Yes.
the whole crowd just
Yes.
goes, oh, It's like, oh my, are you kidding me? Is this going to be like this? Oh, I catch the second one, they all cheer.
Yes.
Oh man. So we get
Yeah.
to the warm ups, and I mean, I'm as nervous as I could possibly be,
Which is
behind the
awesome.
because of all what's going on here. And so I Johnny Damon leads off. He comes
Yes.
up, and I'm like, sweet, all right, we're about to get this thing going. And he swings at like the first pitch and pops it up, I think, to the second baseman. And I'm like, okay, all right, we got
Yeah.
to the first one. But it was like their game plan was like, let's swing early at this guy. And
Yeah.
it just allowed me to kind of get in that rhythm of the game, and like those nerves went away. But man, there
I
wasn't
can't even imagine what it was like, because it was surreal to watch it.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
people don't understand. Like, you literally came out of the back of the police cruiser, ran down the tunnel in Fenway,
Yeah.
got in the batting cage, threw like 8 throws to warm up, had your gear on, went on the field, and you're playing on ESPN, the New York Yankees, Boston Red Sox, and again, Johnny Damon's first game back,
Yeah.
Sunday Night Baseball. It's like,
biggest rivalry ever. Yep.
yeah,
And-
and people
and
just get, yeah,
In the heyday of like Red Sox Yankees, right?
right,
there.
right. When there was still a rivalry, yeah, when we really didn't like it.
Tech was still putting gloves in A-Rod's face. It's like that's
Right.
what I know about that.
So, oh, one of my favorites ever. And I always tell people, one of the things that and I'm curious to hear you talk about this. One of the things that made, and I loathe saying anything kind about you to your face, but I'm going to have to for this piece. One of my favorite things about you was your ability. So doing what you did in the big leagues, being and I don't want to say backup, because you were a starter in the sense that, you had Wakey 35 times a year.
Yeah.
Which I think was perfect for a catching situation, in the sense that Tech got his rest and you got to play. And in 1993, when we went to the World Series with the Phillies, and in 2004, we went to the World Series with the Red Sox, both seasons, it's not a coincidence that the backup catcher, Todd Pratt in Philly and you, had what I would call monster seasons for a backup catch. The numbers that you guys put up, there was no break in production, and which is because, again, you're talking about a fifth of the schedule, if not more, 30 some games. And but it also, we're all alpha males. We all come from a place where we're the best and we're getting drafted, and having, I don't know that you accept the role, but how do you go from being an All-American in Wichita State, superstar, high draft pick, to I'm not going to play every day? How do you get to that mentality, first of all? And secondly, how do you stay good at it?
I got asked that question a lot. Like, hey, how do you do you accept this role as a backup? And my thought was this: look, whatever role I was playing on that team, I wanted to be the best at it that I possibly could. So, Tech obviously had he was a great player for us there. I mean, he was our captain, and I felt like this sense of respect because he respected me from what I did
Right.
too. So there was this brotherhood there between the two of us. That
There is nobody more protective of the second catcher than the starting catcher.
yeah, exactly.
Recognizing how hard your job is.
Yeah, and so man, every time I went out to play, I was like focused on being the best I could. I did not want to be the person, or I didn't want to be back there and we lose every time we play. Obviously, that's not a thing. And but I also wanted to let's keep it going.
Right.
Wakey, I was out there for Wakey out there too. I'm like, if he does well, I do well, and it was a team effort there too. So I think our best year, I mean, Wakey was like 17 or 18 games he won, and I'm like, man, he was almost 40 years old, I think, that time when he did that.
Right. No, yeah. Yeah, it's always, I laugh at a lot of people who say, why don't more people throw knuckleballs? Because it seems like that's just an easy way to get to the big leagues. And it's like,
yeah,
go ahead, go for it, give it a shot.
Yeah, let's see how that happens. Yeah,
Right. But no, and I think one of the big things was, because again, I'm going to mention Todd Pratt. You guys were very similar in the sense that, from a leadership perspective, for me, one of the things that I always loved about you and admired about you was, it didn't matter the status of a teammate of yours. You would say things to anybody. And they weren't offensive. They weren't mean. There were things sometimes that had to get said. And there were conversations that you had that maybe I think a lot of people don't picture you being the guy having them. Right.
Yeah.
And I think that was to me, that's a very powerful piece, because the leaders, I always say that true leadership has nothing to do with statistics. It has everything to do with character. And, in both those markets, Philadelphia and in Boston, they always say you had to play 3 games. You had to play the media pregame, you had to play the game, and then you had to play the media postgame. And there were a lot of balls to juggle for different players. And for somebody like me, who was very quiet and reserved and didn't talk to the media a lot, I which is horrible sarcasm. I had to learn the hard way. But for somebody like you, I mean, how did you? Because again, I think it was a huge deal. I think it was a huge deal that you were a voice in the clubhouse, and the comfort that you had being that and doing that. And how did that come to be? How did you come to be that guy?
So I think here's what happened. I got over to the Red Sox in 2001. We weren't very good. I kind of that's where I started really to develop my bond with Wakefield. There was just a lot of pieces on that team.
I remember 25 guys, 25 cabs, right? That was one of the,
yeah. And the next year, 2002, they started to change it up a little bit, and we started getting in some really good guys. And not that the guys that left were not, but we just didn't work well together.
Right.
And so as I stayed and other people left, I was part of that nucleus that was still part of that team. And so I always felt like, for me, like, it's a lot easier to be in the party than show up to the party and try to fit in with somebody, right? So
right.
I'm here, I'm already there. I kind of know how stuff works. I can be that guy that helps you, get through there. But there's also guys that I always felt there's always a few guys that always take themselves a little bit too serious.
Right.
Let's not forget, like, hey, we're playing baseball here, right? We're not saving lives. Because because the media maybe puts a label on you and you're a superstar, that doesn't mean you're actually any different than me. And so it just was one of those things that it was a lot easier. And I think that when new guys came in, they had respect of the nucleus. So when you have the backing of Jason Varitek or Kurt Schilling, or it's a lot easier for a guy like me who has the voice that wants to use it. But it's when they know that I'm backed by some big guys on that team too, it does make it a lot easier.
Yeah. And that's something I noticed too. And one of the things that I always cherish about you is, and I always use the line, Doug was the guy who could make us laugh in customs at Toronto after a 9-0 drubbing on Sunday Night Baseball. And he would say something so stupid that it was hilarious. And in a 180-day schedule over 6 months, the grind, I still argue it's the hardest schedule in sports to compete and be good at. You have to have those people, because if it's too serious, if it's too tightly wound, you have bad stuff happen. When we had fights, we had scuffles and all the things that a family has, but that guy who could sit on the back of the bus and say something stupid and rip on anybody, especially the rookies, was a special guy. And that was, were you that guy in college?
I think I've been that guy, kind of like, I mean, again, you can't really fake personality.
Right.
Like, you can't really fake that, because, guys see through that. Like,
and we see through that stuff quicker than anything, because we're lied to and bullshitted most of our lives, that you notice the reals and the fakes.
Yeah. Like, so let's not mistake. I wasn't like trying to be the tough guy on the team. That's not
right. No.
Yeah. My guy, I felt like my part of it was, let's keep this thing light. And if you're taking yourself a little bit too serious, let's let me work on you for a little bit. Yeah. You'll remember, you're the same guy that was 8 years old, sliding in the dirt, loving the game, and that's how we all got here. And
I think too, you and I both came up in a generation, the last generation of treat rookies like crap and bully them and earn your way. And we always had an earn your way, but it was different, I think, when we were the veterans, in the sense that we didn't make rookies miserable. And yeah, we did jokes every now and then, but it was never something to make people feel bad about themselves. Because I remember as a young player, like, rookies got treated like crap. And when I say crap, I mean, I remember Greg Jeffries and the horrible things that the Mets did to him. And I think a lot of guys had their careers changed, and not for the better, because of that. And, you know, now I think it's gone way too far the other way, where, you know, the stupid stuff going on and the entitlement that rookies come to the big leagues with used to be 1 in a million. Now it's 1 in 2. And it shows. And that was one of the things I wanted to ask you before we close it out. The new rules. I was a guy who said the pitch clock was going to be a big deal for guys that suck, because good pitchers don't worry about the clock. They work fast anyway. But the shift I was curious about, I think that's had a massive impact. But the place where I was most curious about would have impacted you the most, the rules around base running, and only 2 pickoff throws.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, you give Deion Sanders that second pickoff throw and he gets a one-way lead, he's going to be halfway to second base. Yeah. Like, how? I don't know how much you what, but how does that impact? How does that new rule play into a catcher's mentality?
Well, you know, as a catcher, I was always anticipating every pitch that somebody was stealing anyways. But now, now you know, like, hey, after that second one, I mean, we got a base runner, he's going, right? I mean, there's it does speed up the game. I will give the fact that, are you for that pitch clock deal?
You know what? I was indifferent to it. Here's my argument against the pitch clock. With the pitch clock, we would have never had Kirk Gibson moment. We would have never had Joe Carter's moment. We would have never had multiple moments that for Carlton Fisk, because if you go back and look at those moments, the thing that drew them out was the length of time that event took place. It seems like Kirk Gibson's at bat was 5 minutes long. Now, it probably wasn't, but I guarantee you there were a bunch of pitch clock violations in the middle of it, not to mention he stepped out and all the other things. I think we've lost some of those moments. I don't know how much and what, but some of those moments are gone. And that was the thing. Baseball, to me, was always the only sport left without a clock. And that changed. But games are over in 2.5 hours. Fans love it, so it worked. And I was wrong. I'm okay with that. I like I said, I was more concerned about, like, I would have been Max Scherzer in spring training. I would have been testing the limits of the pitch clock. I would have been finding out how the umpires are going to, because you and I both know the hard, fast rules for umpires to reinforce were never a problem. It was always the stuff where they had the gray area, use your discretion. Yeah. Well, no, umpires don't want to use their discretion. They want to be told how to ump the game, so they don't, because if they use their discretion, they're going to get in trouble.
You yelled at.
And so, yeah, no, I the clock thing, but the base running thing to me was massive. That was the big one for me. And you see stolen bases are up something like 30 or 40%, which, and base runners steal off me anyway, right? You don't steal off the catcher, you steal off the pitcher. And so, and I argue that there's far too many pitchers coming to the big leagues who don't know how to hold runners now, as opposed to when I was young, because I spent a whole season learning it in the minor leagues. Guys now, this Paul Skeens kid, $9.2 million. How many innings in the minor leagues do you think he's going to pitch before he gets his debut? And I don't think that's good for him.
Yeah. Well, you can't even hold the ball long enough, because then you're going to have a pitch clock violation, right? So,
that was a tactic.
Part of holding runners on were when a base runner gets to first base, he wants to go. Like, he's trying to go, and if you allow him to time you, like, and he can count 1,000, 2,000 and go every time, he gets a great jump. But the really good pitchers, not only did they have good pickup moves, but they could vary their times on hold the ball, throwing quick, slide step. They can mix all that stuff up. Nowadays, heck, if you hold the ball too long.
Well, I always said one of the most effective tools ever for holding base runners was just holding the baseball, because base runners hated that, because they got heavy on their feet. Yeah. And I had a place where I would say, okay, I'm going to hold till timeout. So I would hold until somebody called timeout. Now, if I do that, when the clock hits 20, the runner's going.
Yeah.
Clock, what I'm saying? I can't throw. It's just, it's insane. Yeah. It's taken a lot out of the game, but you can't argue with the fact that fans love it. So it is what it is.
Yeah, I guess I'm a big fan of the 2.5 hour game. I mean,
I love playing in those games. It just felt like
everything flowed better, and
Yep.
you know, you
Well,
kept-
yeah, and that happened once every 4 weeks in Boston because we were playing the Yankees and those are 5-hour games. Plus, you're what? You're almost 80 years old now, so you want to be in bed by 7.
That's right. That's right.
Dinner by 5, in bed by 7.
Pepto Bismol and go to sleep.
Dougie, there's one other thing I want to ask you about, and I've laughed ever since I've seen it. But this whole wristwatch, where the catcher and the pitcher can communicate with that, like,
Yeah, I don't even understand it. They got earpieces.
well, I mean, first of all, I'm going to be saying, hey, first of all, don't you click a pitch? I'll tell you what I'm going to throw.
Yeah,
Number
right.
one, but number two,
like the cutter you threw to.
don't.
Uh,
Don't. You don't have to go there. See, he's getting ready to talk about Shannon Stewart and a no-hitter in the bottom of the ninth, 2 outs where I shook off Tech as the only pitch. Yeah, I knew you do. I knew that was where you would go.
There's a cutter away. Hey, hold on, cutter away real fast. There it is.
But
Third's pretty good. Not bad.
back again, part of the strategy was shaking, right? I mean,
Yeah.
there were that was part of the game where I would shake 4 times for a fastball or not shake at all for a 2-0 curveball or something like that.
Yeah.
That's gone. I don't know that. I don't think it's a good thing. But when you're banging garbage cans to tip pitches and using scoreboards like we knew the White Sox were doing in the old Chicago park, I guess that's cheating. And they fixed that. How do you feel about that?
Well, I mean, from a defensive standpoint, like, you know, we always thought the guy on second base was doing something, right? So you're always like, I mean, how much time did it take for me to keep on coming out to you and go, dude, I think he's got him at second base, and
right,
now I got to go back there and let's go, you know, first sign after 2, you know,
right,
whatever. It's like, you know, from that standpoint, I understand why they want to do it. They're just trying to take away any edge from the offense, from stealing signs, which I felt like stealing signs from second base was part of the game. Right?
Absolutely,
like
absolutely.
You can steal them from first base. You can steal them from third base. You
Yep.
can steal them from second. I don't care where.
But that was also a skill for the catcher to keep the signs covered, protected, and mixed up.
And it was a skill from the base runner, right, to try to figure out the signs, you know. But unfortunately, it wasn't like you were on second base. So let's make sure. Like, we all have video cameras of the game, right? So
right.
Those guys are going in between innings and looking at the signs,
right.
And so they're like, hey, if you get to second base, he's going, you know, third sign, or he's going whatever, you know, he's
sign after 3.
Yeah. They're telling them before that, so it's not like they're on second base and they're figuring this out.
Right. No, and we would change it up, right? We would change it up because we knew Alex was a guy who tried to get signs, and Alex Cora was the best I ever saw at it. And there were certain guys who were phenomenal at it, but it was also a skill for that bench player that kept them in the game and kept their value up. Was that extra stuff that they did, and that was part of it.
Yeah. So Carlos Delgado was unbelievable.
Really?
Yeah, he got to second base. He's like, it's like 2 pitches in, he knows what sign you're going. I don't know how he did it, but I was like, man. And maybe it was more myth than anything, but it sure looked like he knew what the heck he was doing.
Yeah. No, I think it was a gift. And then there were guys at the plate who didn't want it. Don't tell me, because if you screw me once, I'm going to get my.
I never trust you again. It's like, if I know 8 out of 10 pitches, I'd be happy with that. How about that?
Right. It's just the 2 that you don't know, that you dive for that slider away and the fastball at your chin comes in and you're.
Why do you run on strike 3? You know, like, why do you got 2 strikes on you miss that one? Yeah. So I don't know. I think again, I mean, this whole world is turning with the technology that we have nowadays, and you know, I think teams are just trying to keep up. From the Astros doing that, you know, totally changed how people look at it.
Well, I mean, come on, that was cheating. You know, it was stupid. And it was also stupid to think that you were going to get away with it and no one was ever going to find out. Like, you know, it's just we aren't very forward thinking athletes in that sense, because we're living in the moment.
It's interesting that it took a former player, right, to out of, when everybody knew what was going on, like they could hear it.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. Like, if I'm an opponent, I would have known 3 pitches in what the hell was going on, because there's a trash can. Somebody's banging a trash can. Like, that's not a normal sound.
Loud.
Right. Loud enough for the hitter to hear it. Like, come on. That's like busting the urinal in Wrigley Field next to the bench every time someone's throwing a breaking ball. Like,
in this day and age of how many people switch teams all the time.
Right.
To keep that secret? What do you like that's not very smart. I mean, I
No,
don't know.
no,
It's-
no,
I mean,
no,
it was cheating, but you're just not, it's just not even smart that you thought
no.
that somebody wasn't going to say something.
Hey, Dougie, it's by the way, DougieGoesDeep.com is the greatest website in history, by the way. I have pointed people to that. And oh my God, I still laugh at that today. It's always a pleasure, my friend. I love you.
All
It's
right.
great to
Yeah,
hear
it's
from
good
you.
seeing
Look
you.
great.
Yeah.
Please tell the kids and the wife we said hello.
I will.
And I'll
Sure.
catch up with you soon, my friend.
Okay. All right. Good talking to you guys.
All right, buddy.
We'll see you.
All right. Thank you. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Outkick.com. Anywhere you guys get podcasts, you can get the Curt Schilling Baseball Show. Obviously, we'd prefer Outkick.com, but Spotify, Apple, anywhere you get your podcasts, you can check us out. You guys have a great weekend. I'll catch up.